Hello and welcome to Setting the Stage. I'm Isaac Shaker, and this is episode 79, Dragon Age Degenerates, Zoe from Degenerates with Dice. If it wasn't obvious from the title, this is a Dragon Age actual play campaign set in the Dragon Age video game universe. Great universe, love it, love the games. And Zoe is using the official Dragon Age TTRPG that's been adapted into the Age RPG. Yeah, that's pretty much all you need to know going into this. So after some ads for the non-Patreon listeners, let's get into it. Today I'm here with Zoe from the Degenerates with Dice actual play show. Hi, Zoe.
Hi.
So you're not really the host of the show, from what I understand, but you were GMing for one of the little story arcs within the show.
Yeah, so I actually met this lovely, wonderful group of friends through one of the other many hosts that we have on the show, Kristen, a few years back when I was like in a group and I was like, hey, I'm not having fun playing in this one group. I'm having issues. Does anyone have any like groups or anything like that? Immediately she messaged me and was like, come play Pirates. And that's how I became friends with Kristen and then eventually Noah. And then we stopped playing the campaign we were in because of life. And then they started playing 7th Sea on their podcast. And Kristen was like, hey, do you want to bring your character back? And so I did. And now they're just forever stuck with me.
Yeah, it's a cool show. It's a bit different because it has like little story arcs where you guys play for a bit and then it switches over to more like talking about RPGs. So it's a bit of both.
It's fun. We like to keep it kind of casual. We kind of have like an idea of what we want to do. And so like I really enjoyed playing 7th Sea again because Kristen is a fantastic DM. And then playing with Joe and Natalie and Jen was just amazing. And I already knew Noah was a good player. And so over the summer, when we were thinking about wanting to roll dice again, and the closer we got to like the fall, I was like, hey, I really want to try DMing again. Because I've only ever DM'd once, and it was for like a Christmas one-shot for one group that I was playing with, because the DM was like, if you want to do something for Christmas, I'm not doing anything. So whoever wants to DM can DM. And so I got to, and I loved it. And I was like, and if you guys don't mind, can we please play Dragon Age? It is my hyper fixation of the century.
Yeah.
And they I almost cried on our first day that we played because it was either the first day or the second day we played, and they dressed up for me, and I was just so shocked, and they were just like, yeah, we wanted to let you know how much, like, we're loving this, and how much, like, we enjoy playing, and, like, you're doing a good job, and I'm just, like, like that imposter syndrome. So, it just, like, made my heart happy, and, yeah, so right now we're playing Dragon Age, in the Age system, and so I absolutely love the system. I think I would only ever want to DM the Dragon Age system if I decide to continue DMing.
Well, yeah, I want to talk about the system, but I also want to I always like framing like who someone is outside of RPGs, so people get like a sense for who I'm talking to. Yeah, so for who are you outside of role playing and D&D and Degenerates with Dice?
Outside of, I actually came very late into the game, into RPGs. This is a newer. I didn't start playing until 2016, 2017. So, oh my god, almost like 10 years ago now. I was like 19 when I first started playing, so like it's not like it's now a core part of my personality, but I yap a lot to like obviously like our friends in our group chat. I am a huge video gamer, and I play a lot of video games that have been branching out. They've been listening to my updates as I've been playing Fallout for the first time, and they've been enjoying that. I love reading. I currently own half of a small library in my house. And in case anyone doesn't know what that is, a small library is technically consists of 1,000 books. So I just hit my 500th book. So I've been like trying to like reread all of the ones that I have on my shelves as well as all the new books that I have. I absolutely like this is gonna sound uh like, oh, well, of course. So I just recently started getting into like the LARP community and I've been LARPing and doing stuff like that. So like I've just turned into like this ultimate mega nerd over the course of my life because all I ever did as a kid was play video games, read books, play outside. And then of course live in my imaginary fantasy worlds because I'm
Mhm.
constantly thinking up of like stories and things like that. And so like I'm sitting back and I think as I'm like talking with you about it, like, of course I should would have like ended up playing with magical dice and playing like tabletops because that's just how it is. But unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, but I can't play video games and DM for a job. So my day job, I'm actually a special education teacher and I work with students. And I actually, right before Christmas break, we, a group of my kids, we were learning about the Middle Ages. And I
Uh-huh.
did like a mini tabletop of like them playing in the Middle Ages. And they
Oh,
loved it.
cool.
They were enthralled. Gotta
That's really
start them
neat.
young.
Did you bring in dice, or was it just more like
I
role
did.
playing?
I
Oh,
gave them a 20-sided dice. They would have to roll, and it was like super basic. And I gave them like basic little sheets. And I was like, here you go. And so we like lived a day in the Middle Ages, like in the middle of like, like a fake war or whatever. And
mhm.
they were just like, this is so cool. And so like I got, even though I was like for reading, they also got to incorporate math. We incorporated social studies. So I like doing stuff like that because I'm very much a like, I love connecting things together and seeing how they fit. And I'm
Mhm.
very much the kind of person that overplans and does all that crazy stuff.
Well, I think everyone
And
knows how like motivating games are for getting
yes,
people to do something. So yeah,
yes.
totally.
And so, like, the fact that I was able to bring that part of my life into my work, it was very, like, it was very fulfilling. But I mean, yeah, essentially, I teach little kids and I do all of the things and just shows that I'm just a huge little nerd.
All right. So yeah, thank you for giving a very in depth. That's a much better vision of your character than I usually get. That's nice.
I hope I try. I try and I hope.
So, Dragon Age, I'm assuming you got into it
Hmm.
because you like video games, and it's
Oh my gosh,
primarily a
yes.
video game.
Yes. So I discovered Dragon Age, I think, when I was like a sophomore in high school. And I saw, like, my mom bought my brother for the PlayStation 3 Dragon Age Inquisition. And he just wasn't into it. My brother is also a huge video gamer. And so I tried to play it and I was in love. I don't like playing, like, games that are of that caliber and aspect almost on like console. So I was like, Mom, like you have to buy this for me for the computer. Please, 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 please. And at the time I had like a
Hmm.
little laptop and it was like the one where like you would put your disc in and you would put the disc in and then you would play the game and I was just like and I fell in love. And then I discovered that it was the third game in the series and I was like, there's more. And
Hmm.
so I played Origins then again, and then I played Dragon Age 2, and still to this day, Dragon Age 2 is my favorite game. It is an absolute masterpiece. I don't think I'm ever going, like, other than, like, of course, like the rest of the Dragon Age games, I don't think I am ever going to get that experience again of just like being so enraptured in a game where like it is now a core piece of my personality.
Did you like the combat for it, or like the storytelling points for it?
So growing up, one of my first like big girl video games, other than like, like Tak and the Power of Juju and Crash Bandicoot and Mario Kart, was like Legend of Zelda, The Twilight Princess. And I loved the storytelling in it. Mostly for me, it is, if there is a good story, it is a win. If the combat makes sense, it is an absolute bonus. And so Dragon Age, I love the combat in. No matter what game it is, it's always like, other than Origins, but Origins is like a whole different ball field.
Yeah, Origins is definitely a transition from like what the later games are in between that and like the older like Baldur's Gate style.
Yes. And so like if the combat is fast paced, it like really gets me going and I get really into it. And so that's what I got out of Dragon Age 2. And I really loved like the camera work in the game, where like you would like zip and you would move around and the camera would be like whipping and you could see like the blurs of everything. And you're just like, oh my God, like this is so cool. And then it was the same thing in Inquisition. And then when I played Veilguard, it was along the same lines of like, it's quick, it's fast paced, you feel like there's no lulls in combat, and then it's just like, now I'm going to start thinking about all the different ways that I can, like, after I play, like, the main type of character I play, I always like to play a warrior first, because if that's how I'm going to understand mechanics, I want to do it as easily as I physically can. And then my next character is usually a mage, and then I end up becoming so overpowered that I, like, one-shot all of the little like enemies so quickly. And so like I just constantly like, also if the game has just replayability, that is what like definitely really gets me going. And like I have replayed Inquisition so many times. I think I'm up to like 2,000 hours in the game. Ooh. Like it's not even funny. I just finished my most recent Veilguard playthrough and I was just like, oh my God, like, and I'm like sitting back and I'm like thinking, and then I just replayed Baldur's Gate 3 for the first time, for the third time again, and I played as a dirge, and I was just like, God, I love these games.
Well, yeah, I also think they're really cool. Like, the combat is fun, but I also think like BioWare just does a great job of making
they do.
The stories feel like there's impact to what you're doing.
There is, and it's not even just like a world building impact, it's like an emotional impact. And so I think that's also what really gets me, because like I said, I'm a reader, and like a lot of the times I get like really invested in the books, and I get really invested in TV shows and movies, especially if like the storytelling is good. And BioWare just like hit every single game. And I know that there's been like complaints about like Veilguard and how like they're like, well, the story doesn't match and blah 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 blah. And I'm just like, okay. Like if you don't think of it as a Dragon Age game, and it's the fourth in the series, it's still a really good game. Like,
I feel like they were inevitably painting themselves into a corner with that, honestly. Like, there's just so many choices. How would you possibly have a fourth game that's like a single game, as opposed to like, here's a sequel for if you made these choices, and here's a different sequel for if you made these choices?
Yes. And I think it also, like, unfortunately, I feel like they were forced to rush the game. And I feel like if they did have the time to do, like, what they've done, like what they did with Inquisition, where they thought of every single possible choice that you could have made in the previous two games and apply it to that one, I feel like people would have loved Veilguard more. And I mean, I'm not going to knock it, because, like, I still think, like, for me, it was a good experience. I openly wept in the middle. In this one part of the game, like, absolutely crying. Kind of spoileries, Varric is my favorite character. And that's all I'm going to say about it. Because as I was describing it to someone the other day at dinner, I started crying again thinking about it, and they were just like, oh my gosh, you really love this character. I'm telling you, Varric Tethras is my favorite character in any piece of media, and no one will ever change my mind.
I still need to play through Inquisition. I haven't gotten to that yet. I started it, but I couldn't. Something happened and I left it.
I fell in love with Varric in Inquisition, and then when I found out he was in Dragon Age 2, I legit screamed.
Yeah. No, he's such a great character.
There he is! And he is just my favorite character. I think he has an amazing story arc. I think he has amazing growth. And oh my gosh, like I could yap on forever and ever and always about Dragon Age.
Well, yeah, let's talk about like the world of Dragon Age, like the actual sort of like setting.
Yes.
So I feel like I would want to start with like talking about the Fade, because that's like feels foundational to a lot of the rest of what's going on.
Okay. So yes. So essentially, like the way that the Fade works, now that we have new added lore, the Fade is where like obviously where the spirits of the world lived, where like where like it was essentially like wisdom and empathy and love, and like as like Solus mentioned in one of the games, like the feeling of what it is like as you are in a wagon riding home, and like there's spirits for everything, and they all envelop like emotions. And so the Fade is essentially like this world in between worlds, where it is like more magical than reality, and then it also is affected by your thoughts and your dreams. And that's why a lot of like mages, whenever they discover like certain powers or aspects about themselves, they can walk into the Fade and experience the Fade firsthand. But it's very rare for your physical body to go in, because you can only go in if there's like a tear in reality. And so because of the events of Inquisition, like there's now more and more tears hopping in because of the breach.
Right.
And so like ultimately like you end up, hopefully this doesn't like, have you played Veilguard yet? I don't want to spoil it for you.
I knew I'd done Inquisition a little bit, so I know about like the terrors and
Okay. So I won't get too into like the new stuff, but like essentially like it is like I always like to describe it. It is like walking through a daydream, but then it can easily turn into like a nightmare if you walk into the wrong part of the Fade. So like the Fade,
that doesn't seem like new information to me.
No, but like just describing it for our lovely friends who might not know, but I also don't want to give too much away. But you learn a lot about like the spirits and why they affect things so much. And then you learn about like how they interpret the world around them and how they internalize the memories of places. And you can even watch like memories of people that have died like centuries ago and watch it constantly replay over and over and over. And so it is like, it would be like a historian's dream to be able to just instantly like go in and out of the Fade. And so the Fade is like just something where like, yes, it's a slog whenever you do have to go through the Fade in any of the Dragon Age games, but you always learn something about it. And it's just like this mysterious thing that it's like the ocean where no one is ever going to fully understand what all is inside of it. And then the more you go spelunking, the more horrors you're gonna find, essentially. And so I think that is just like fascinating to me. And the fact that, oh my goodness, I don't know, like we have only discovered like 3% of the Fade, and we're never gonna be able to find what like where the ends are, because it's just this vast entity and it's terrifying.
Sort of like a ocean comparison there.
Like the ocean is scary but beautiful, and so is the Fade.
Yeah. So it's where spirits live, and it's also where like magic originates from.
Mm-hmm.
So mages are able to access the Fade, and that's kind of how they cast their spells, but like drawing on it too much lets like a demon inhabit their body, like an evil spirit.
Yeah.
Or a good spirit, I guess.
Yes. So there are actual instances in Dragon Age where like possession is like one of the worst things that can happen to a mage. If you get possessed, it's like basically like a death sentence. You threaten to summon demons, it is a death sentence. Like, they don't mess around with that stuff. And I've, like, told, obviously, my friends in our podcast, like, because we do have a mage, and she did make a joke about, like, I've summoned demons. And I'm like, off camera, I was like, don't ever say that joke in front of anyone else other than your friends for the rest of this campaign, or there will be repercussions. And she's like, what do you mean? And so, like, I explained that essentially, like, it is, like, mages are not treated the kindest in this world, unfortunately, like, because of how powerful they are, because they do draw upon the Fade. They are able to create fire out of thin air. They were able to wield lightning and summon, like, beasts to help them fight and do all of, like, these crazy things. And depending upon like how powerful you are, you can even learn how to like shift shape. There we go. Your body and like shapeshift. Thank you. Oh my goodness. I can't even talk right now because I'm so excited. But essentially it's like mages have like, yes, they're like these almighty powerful beings and probably like akin to the gods, like essentially. Like, if you want to compare, but, like, they don't even touch in comparison to the power of the actual gods in the game, like Corypheus, or eventually in Veilguard, Elgranon, and Gillenane. And essentially, they are reined in so much that they hate it, and they don't have any freedoms, and they absolutely like despise being like treated like this. And so that's why a lot of like in the Dragon Age games there's constant conflict with Templars and mages, because the Templars are like the police order that keep the mages in check, and the mages are like, well, why don't you trust us? And then Jimothy John Jones down the hallway decided to do blood magic, and now there's a demon roaming the halls and their body's possessed. So then it's like, well, this is why we have to keep you guys in check. And so it's like, yeah, you guys have an immense amount of power, but the more powerful you are, the more tantalizing demons will want to come and, like, get you. And that's why they have, oh god, I'm forgetting the name for the moment, but it's like, your test in order to prove that you're ready to become, like, a full-fledged mage, and it's basically like a test to see if a demon were to come up to you and offer you power, are you willing to take it? If you're able to fight it off, then you get to become a mage. If you don't fight it off, you get possessed, and then, unfortunately, you're killed. And so it's like, it's just such, it's...
I thought people that failed were severed for that test, where they...
It's like...
lobotomize them.
It is. It's like you get turned tranquil, but then if it goes too far and the demon takes over your body, you're going to get killed. And tranquil is like a whole different thing. Gosh, that's probably other than being an elf into Vinter, that's probably the worst thing that you could possibly be in Dragon Age is a tranquil.
Yeah, they're like lobotomized mages where they just enchant magic items and they no longer make any independent decisions. It's sort of a way to have like a safe mage because they can't do anything bad, but they also are like, you know, they're not really a person anymore.
Yes, and that's why the Rite of Tranquility is like the worst thing that a Templar commander can enact in this game, because he can easily be like, all right, we're just gonna cleanse all the mages, we're gonna turn them all tranquil, and no one's gonna say anything because we can easily just say that they fought back and they're going to agree with us.
I mean, that's pretty much what the Kunari did. So the races in Dragon Age are humans, dwarves, elves, and then Kunari are kind of like an orc equivalent. That's definitely oversimplifying.
I've described them as like a tiefling, and of course, like the myth and like the storytelling of it is that because they came from somewhere that wasn't Thedas, and we've only ever explored this world on the continent of Thedas, that they came across the sea, and that somehow their blood was touched by dragons. And so, like, they're almost like dragonborn, but they're not scaly. They're more humanoid and tiefling-like than they are dragonborn, is how I describe it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so they have horns, they're big, they're strong, and they have a very different approach to the world. They have, like, this code of conduct they call the Qun.
Mm-hmm.
And then a point related to mages is that all Qunari mages are, like, this special form of tranquil, where they can still, like, cast battle magic, but they can't speak or really make decisions anymore after whatever they're doing to make their mages tranquil.
Yeah, it is like they essentially break them, is what it is. And they like chain them up, they bind their mouths closed, they cut out their tongues. I think the three worst things you could be in this world is an elf in Tevinter, a tranquil mage in Thedas, or a Cerebos in the Qun. Like, I described it to our group, like, they treat you like you are less than a dog. They only see you as an object. They will not put their lives above yours if you are a Cerebos, unfortunately. And so, because of how rigid their culture is, it's as soon as you show that magic ability and that magic potential, it is like instantly, it is like, all right, now we have to break them and let them know that there is no life outside of being this, and that they will submit, or we will make you submit, essentially.
Yeah. It's they're not portrayed very like, this is great. It's very much.
Didn't I think about it and how this is like my comfort game? It is a harsh world. The more I like dive deeper into it and read into things, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, no, like, this world actually like kind of sucks unless you're like a human noble,
right? Or maybe an elf mage, but yeah,
maybe an elf mage if you're Dalish.
Yeah. So going back to the mage conversation, there's this reason that mages are treated this way beyond just like, they can summon demons. And that's the sort of origin of, I feel like, the main carry through of the games of the blights. Where the old mages did a very bad thing, and now the world is punished.
Yes. And so that is the narrative that has been said. So there is this place called the Tevinter Imperium in Thedas, and it's in like the most northern, not like the most northern, but the northernest empire, and it used to span the entirety of Thedas. And so they eventually, because of like people fighting back, their territory like got smaller and smaller and smaller. But there are these, I don't want to say the number wrong, but I'm going to give like a range of like 10 to 13 Tevinter mages. And so in Tevinter, being a mage is actually a good thing, and you have the most powerful. And so these mages are called magisters. And so what they did is that there is a version of like a god in this universe, and it's called the Maker. And so he lives in like the Golden City with his wife Andraste, and Andraste is like this figure who was like, I can never remember properly if she's a human or if she's an elf, and she basically like
Didn't she come in later? I thought she.
They mention her, and like, but like she's like associated to the Maker, and so they wanted to go see like the Black City, or they wanted to go see the Golden City, but like tied to the Maker. I like casually dropping Andraste because I think she's absolutely a powerhouse of a woman. So,
yeah, definitely.
So essentially, back on track, back on target, Zoe. Pay attention. So we can't dive too deep. We don't have the time. So the magisters are like, hey, like, we're gonna prove that the Maker is real, and we're going to go to the Golden City, and we're going to see God, essentially, and then we're going to come back, and we're going to talk about how wonderful it was, and yada, yada, yada. And so the myth is that they do rip open a tear into the Fade. They are able to come into the Golden City, but it is empty. And so it is the Black City now. And they're just like, well, where's the Maker? And because of this, they blame, like, the Darkspawn upon them, because each of those magisters turned into, like, what you saw, like, for Corypheus, like, this, like, blight-touched figure who's, like, basically, like, absolute evil. And so then the Darkspawn are created, and Darkspawn come in all shapes and sizes, like ogres, little tiny creatures called Genlocks, Hurlocks, alphas, these terrifying creatures called Shrieks that absolutely made me pee myself the first time I came across them in Origins. I did not expect that, and I literally had to pause the game and be like, what is happening in this madness? And so it's not like every couple of years. It depends upon how much happens in between and how the archdemons work. And because of these magisters going in, there are these dragons that are also now affected by the blight called archdemons. And these are the things that lead the blight. And you can only have a blight if there is an archdemon. Now, because of them going into the Golden City and tainting it, everything is now essentially, you have these blights that come in waves, and by the time you get to the game in Origins, I believe that is the fifth blight that happens. That is the fifth blight. What are
supposed to be 7.
Yes.
There were 7 dragons that got buried somewhere.
Yes. So you go through, and these archdemons essentially are the generals of the Darkspawn army, and there's always Darkspawn around, but when they start amassing, that is when a blight happens. And so the blight is almost like the plague, if you want to think of it that way, kind of. And essentially if you get hurt by a Darkspawn or get their blood in you, there's the potential of you turning into a Darkspawn.
Yeah, it's like a zombie thing.
It's like a zombie thing. Like, you don't go full, like, Hurlock, but you turn into, like, almost like this, like, ghoul, and it is not a pleasant experience. Like, you have to, like, do, like, it's basically, like, you get called and you become a part of the Horde, essentially. And so, like, but then, because of these blights, there are these wonderful group of people that, like, rose up, and they're like, hey, if we taint ourselves with the Darkspawn blood, we can defeat the Archdemon. And that's how the Grey Wardens come into play. And they're a huge part of the game. And even in the tabletop, that, like, Grey Wardens are, like, essentially, like, if the Templar are the police, the Grey Wardens are, like, the people that you call in when stuff gets real and you're like, oh crap, like, we need to call in the cavalry. And so they are the ones who are able to end the blights, and the way that you would end the blight is that a Grey Warden has to be the one to deal the final blow against an archdemon, or else it is never going to end, because the Grey Warden essentially, there's no fancy way to say it, they, like, suck in the soul of the archdemon, and then it kills them, because
you're spoiling a 20-year-old game. What are you saying?
I'm spoiling it. I'm spoiling it. Spoilers. Big red flashing lights are happening.
Right.
But essentially that is how, like, you have to end the blight, is that a Grey Warden has to be the one to do the final blow. And essentially, like, the blights, like, ravage everything in Thedas. It is like they do not care where or when you are. If it happens, it's gonna happen. And unfortunately, in Dragon Age, you start off with a blight, You go into Dragon Age 2, which kind of like happens during, but then also after. Dragon Age 3, another blight. Dragon Age 4, another blight. And you're just like, geez, all of this is blight, 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 blight. And then you're just
well, they've never been that like close together in the history.
I think like the closest, I did like a lot of research on blights as I was prepping for this to make sure that I had like accurate like accounts, and then it all like escaped my brain when I was like, screw it, I'm doing something else. And I think like the closest age, like the closest time in blights was like maybe like 50 years. And I think it was between like blights, it was either blights 2 and 3 or 3 and 4. And then it was like, but from 4 to 5, it was like 100 or 200 years since the last blight. Like, it was like, all right, like, there's no more blights. We're fine. What do you mean there's a horde of darkspawn amassing? There's no archdemon. And then the archdemon shows up and then messes everybody's day up.
Yeah. So the archdemon is the name for like a dragon that's been blighted. Mm-hmm. And there's like the Herlocks and Gemlocks and I forget what they're called, the ogres. Those are all like different races. So like Herlocks are humans that have been blighted, and they're kind of like orcs. Gemlocks are dwarves, and they're kind of like goblins. The ogres are Kunari, so they become huge. And I think shrieks are supposed to be elves.
Yes, I think so. I think so. I also associate like the elves with like Herlocks, because Herlocks and Genlocks are like the most abundant ones, so I kind of associate with them. But I mean, yeah, like that line of logic makes more sense to me than like, because I always was like, I wonder what shrieks are. But no, yeah, that makes sense. Elves being shrieks.
Mm-hmm. So there are other dragons besides the 7, but the 7 that are the archdemons are like, they're some sort of like gods that were also corrupted by the Golden City becoming the Black City.
Yes. So the way that it goes, essentially, I don't want to spoil a whole lot, so I'm going to try my best. So essentially there is this.
I feel like a lot of this is from the first game, so I feel like it's sort of okay to spoil it.
Okay.
You know, like, it's been out for ages.
I know everything up until Veilguard. So like, I'm going to try to watch what I say. So there is, in elven culture, there were the gods called, because every culture has their own version of like deities and stuff.
Well, I've read the twist for this from Veilguard, so you're okay for sharing with me, and everyone who's listening to this should well know by now that there are spoilers in this episode.
If you don't know anything, friends and pals, please use earmuffs for the next however many minutes I'm going to yap about this, because this, to me, when we got all this information in Veilguard, I couldn't think about anything else for the next 2 months.
Wow.
So, Fen'Harel is this trickster type god. Every culture has this like trickster god, right? And so he decided that he was gonna trap the elven gods in the Fade, and that is why we have the Fade. He created the Fade around the world, and so it is essentially this like, as we were saying before, it's almost like a magic barrier between the Fade and like, it's like this lovely magical, the Fade is like a magical barrier between like the world of dreams and reality. And so if that goes away, then everything gets torn down. Well, you learn that essentially Fen'Harel, I don't want to say the name, but I'm gonna drop the name if we all know what it is. Soulless, my love, my world, my light, my everything. You end up learning that the reason being throughout Inquisition and Veilguard was that the elven gods were actually the bad guys. And so essentially over the course of the 2 games, you end up learning like, oh, like Fen'Harel was actually like helping people. And so the gods essentially fell asleep and they were stuck in the Fade and their powers were immensely drained because of this. And then you end up figuring out over the course of Inquisition and more in Veilguard than in Inquisition, that the archdemons are actually the corporeal embodiments of the elven gods. And so the last two blights that are left are Gillenane and Elgernon. And so they use these dragons essentially as like their puppets, but their life forces are tied to these dragons. And so when the dragons from the blights were killed, then the elven gods were killed, essentially. And so these dragons play once you realize that and you start playing from Origins up, you realize, oh my gosh, they were kind of like alluding to this all along. And that is why this game is so stinking good.
Yeah, I feel like there are definitely pieces of that you can see, and I feel like, I mean, I didn't play them. I played about when Inquisition started coming out, so maybe there were pieces of that already existing, but I feel like people were putting the pieces together earlier on of that. Mm-hmm. Oh, okay, so each of these is like one of the gods, and they're I think the twist with them, the actually being the bad people, was something that came later. Maybe an Inquisition, but the other parts were there before.
It wasn't revealed until Veilguard that they were the bad guys, and you learn just how bad they are. And so, because they basically, I don't want to say they were corrupt spirits, but essentially, like, for instance, like, spoiler alert, big warning flags, flashing again.
We're past that point.
I know, but I always like to do that because I hate spoiling things for people. I like allowing people to figure it out on their own or experience it. And I never want spoilers for myself. I never go searching for them. I just let it happen. I just allow myself. I'm really good at avoiding spoilers. I am absolutely a wizard at it. And so you end up finding out that the spirits of the Fade are actually where elves came from, and that elves use the blood of the spirits use the blood of titans to turn themselves corporeal, and that's how they were able to become the quote-unquote gods, because they were, but they weren't, and they ruled over the elves. And essentially you learn that the Vaseline in Dragon Age Inquisition is actually slave markings, because each of the gods had their own version of slave markings, and they used the elves as slaves to, like, go on their hungry power trips. And then Fen'Harel, aka Solus, was like, we're not dealing with this anymore. He led this big rebellion. He locked the gods away, and then they've been fighting to get out ever since. And that's how you end up finding out that the Blight happened, was because of these gods trying to fight their way out, and they used the Blight in order to do that. And then you end up finding out even more, and it still breaks my heart, that the reason why we have the Blight is because they killed the Titans to become corporeal. And you're just sitting there and you're just like, oh my god, like, I'm telling you, it was the biggest lore dumper's dream to play Veilguard with no spoilers, and seeing all of that, and then just feeling like the anger of the dwarves, and then having it all resonate for why the Titan was so angry in Inquisition. If you got to play, what was the DLC called? The DLC where you get to go into, it's not Trespasser, because that's the one where you find out that Solus is Fen'Harel, but it's like the DLC where you go in and you go deeper into the deep roads than anyone has ever gone before, and then you end up finding out that there's an entire world underneath of the world, because I hear you click-clacking like you're trying to look it up.
I am.
But, oh my gosh.
The Descent.
The Descent. Oh, The Descent. Other than Trespasser, that's probably my favorite DLC, because that also gives you just really good nuggets of lore. And you're just like, this world
I really like
is...
Corypheus for the same reason. It was so, like, opened so many Oh, okay, there we
the
go.
DLCs, people just sleep on them and they're like, I'm not going to play the DLCs. I just want to play No. Play the games with the DLCs. You get so much more out of the world if you play the DLCs. I will end my rant there.
Yeah, I wouldn't say they're full games exactly, but it's like it's like a full act. Like, like Dragon Age 2 had like 3 acts, and
yes,
the DLC like felt like another one.
Yes, like
they're very, very good.
I will say, like, how like people can play like The Last of Us in like 20 to 30 hours. Like, you can play these DLCs in like 20 to 30 hours. So like that is definitely like, if you go spelunking, if you're like a person like me and you want to get every little crumb and do every little quest and drag it out, you will get so much more out of it. But I know that's not everyone's gameplay style.
Next, I wanted to talk about like there's other gods that still exist, or at least people think they do. It's not quite clear to me that they actually do, but
I'll try my best.
We have the Maker, we have Andraste, and I feel like Andraste is sort of a Jesus equivalent. It's more complicated than that, but she's like the prophet.
She's very Jesus-y. She's like if Jesus was a woman and had the ability to bring forth everyone under the same common cause to fight back the Roman Empire.
Yeah. I mean, it's a Jesus equivalent in this like really fantasy world where it's just like, okay, she's the dead religious leader. It kind of
and
stops there, to be honest.
everyone loves her, and she's just painted as this beautiful woman, and like some people paint her as like this demure, quiet lady, and then other people are like, no, she actually was a warrior and was very charismatic. So it's like however you want to interpret her. So yeah, there's the Maker, and then there's Andraste, his bride, because he fell in love with her because of her kind and warrior heart. And then you have the dwarves, who don't really have gods per se. They reference something called the Stone and the Titans are like their version of gods, but they're not super religious people. They focus more on the people called paragons, and these are people who invent something or they do something that is like for the greatest good for the Dwarven Empire. So like it's very, very much well-rounded, and it's not like, well, that doesn't make any sense whenever you talk about religious lore or historical significance.
Yeah, I was gonna say like the Andraste and the Maker and the Chantry religion that goes with it are very human facing. So that's like the human version. The dwarves have the paragons and kind of like sort of, it's not exactly ancestor worship, but like ancestor respect.
Yeah.
And Kinari have the Kyun, which is, I feel like poorly understood. Like we know it's got all these like weird rules, but we don't actually know what they are.
And that's the beauty of it, because you don't get to know what the Kyun is unless you're a part of the Kyun. It doesn't make sense to people unless you're a part of it. And that's what I like about it, because it is this big mysterious thing where you do get little snippets here and there, but a lot of it is just like, yeah, like you're not going to know because this isn't your culture, and you will not understand it when I try to describe it to you because you didn't grow up with this. And so that's why I really like, for instance, like the whole like conversation with Sten when you play as a warrior woman in Dragon Age Origins, and he is like, I don't understand. You're not a man. And I always play my character as like, what do you mean, Sten? Like, what are you talking about, my guy? And he's like, warriors can only be women, and you are a woman, so that makes you not a woman because you are a warrior, but you are not a man. And he's like trying to understand, and he's reaching out, and then you realize like, oh, they have gender roles over there. And then when you play Veilguard, if you play in the way where Tosh is going on this non-binary journey, and her mother grew up in the Kyun, and she's trying to understand, and she's like, well, maybe instead of being a female, maybe you're this. I'm not going to try to say the name of the term that they use for someone who is transgendered. And she goes, well, maybe you're transgender. And then Tosh is like, but that's not it either, Mom. You're not understanding. Stop applying it to what you know and listen. And so I think, like, the beauty of the Qun is that we're not going to understand unless we play a game where the main character is from the Qun. And the Qun doesn't even have to necessarily be the Qunari. It can be a human. It can be a dwarf. It can be an elf. Yes, they're treated differently, but the Qun accepts all people and all races and all creeds into their ranks because they believe the more numbers you have, the better. It's just the Qunari are the main people who follow it. And so I would love, and I don't think we're ever going to get a game like this from Dragon Age, but I would love to have a character who is from the Qun and we get to experience what it is like being in the Qun. And then, of course, like, you know, like the impacting moment happens and then you're ripped away from everything you know, as the way most video games go. But I would love to see that at least once, because it is like we've said, or like you've said and I've said, it's like this big mysterious thing that no one understands.
I think it's sort of like a storytelling device that it can be whatever the writers want it to be if they don't actually fully explain it. But it would be cool to at least have like a side game that kind of explored it, like an expansion that goes there.
Or even a book or a graphic novel.
We always get these like little bits and pieces, but yeah, it's always like an outsider interacting with it and being confused. Yeah.
And then you get a little bit more in Inquisition when you recruit Iron Bull and he explains how the system works. But then he's a part of the Qun, but he hates it. He doesn't like being in it. And so eventually you can make the choice of, is he going to choose to remain with the Qun or is he going to choose his friends? I always choose his friends because screw like having your friends die over something that you hate, but you know it's a part of your culture, so you can't cut it off from yourself. Like, I don't want people to die. I try to save as many people as I physically can in video games.
Right. So there were a few other things I wanted to cover about the world. We're getting to the end of what I wanted to talk about. One of them was related to dwarves. So we're used to dwarves living underground, and it's called the Deep Roads for this. It's also where the Blight exists when there's not like an actual Blight. It's where the Darkspawn are. So the dwarves have this organization called the Legion of the Dead, who's responsible for fighting the Darkspawn when there's not a Blight.
They hold the line.
Yeah, it's kind of like, you know, in Lord of the Rings, like Gondor is always fighting Mordor, and there's this like resentment towards Rohan for not doing their part to hold back the evil.
And you kind of feel that in Origins when you go down to Orzammar and you interact with the Legion of the Dead, and you're like, hey, I'm the Grey Warden, I'm here to help, and they're just like, we could have used you guys 100 years ago. Now you show up, and it's
right, yeah.
Oh, it's like, it hits you like they're in war every day, every second, and they have no moments of peace.
Yeah, so that's the Legion of the Dead. And there's also this, like, split between dwarves that live underground and ones that go, like, live on the surface, where, like, the ones underground, they see themselves as, like, we're the real dwarves, and the ones that live on the surface are, like, scum.
Oh my goodness, yeah. They say that they've lost their stone sense, that they're no longer connected to the stone. And the stone is always referenced as a capital S. It has never been a lowercase. It is always a capital S. It's like referencing to like the church as the capital C church, the capital S stone. And like, and dwarves have like set up their whole society down there. They're the ones that mine lyrium. They don't have access to magic because they don't have dreams. The only way that you can have magic is that you're a dreamer, and dwarves don't have dreams. And so like they also are the ones that come up with like runes, and they're basically like the non-lobotomized versions of mages. But if you spend a little bit too much with the lyrium, you get a little, I like to call twitchy. And essentially it's like, okay, maybe we need to take a break from the lyrium, friends. And so, being a dwarf, yeah, there is that divide of the surface dwarves versus the dwarves born underground. And then there's also, like, things in the dwarven culture called castes. And so when you're born into a caste, depending upon what gender you are, if like your mom was a smith caste and your dad was a warrior caste and your mom gives birth to a son, then that elevates her up to the warrior caste and that elevates you up to the warrior caste. And so like the higher your caste, the better it is. And it's all based around like gender roles. Again, like there's as I'm like sitting here and I realize there's a lot of gender roles when it comes to like things. But like, for instance, if you want to like be this woman who opens up her own smithery, they're not going to stop you from doing that. And it's like, okay, you're in the smith caste. That's what you were made to do. So go do it, please. But then there's these people called the casteless, where if it's like they commit a crime or if they go up to the surface, you become casteless. And essentially it is like, we now shun you. You don't exist to us. You are not anything other than just maybe like a piece of trash on the side of the road if I walk by you.
Yeah, and I feel like that's not even really unique to the dwarf situation. I feel like there's a lot of like social status is important in a lot of places within the Dragon Age setting. Like humans definitely have it with like nobles. It's not as explicit as like the caste system, but there are like classes for people. Elves maybe don't have it as much, but there still is a bit of it. Like the Dalish view alienage elves as like stupid.
Yeah, they view them as less than because they wanted to be more human, because unfortunately at the time it was a very human-centric world when the humans came to Thedas. And so then the Dalish are trying to scrape back pieces of their history, because a lot of their history was lost due to being enslaved for thousands of years under the Winter Imperium. And essentially they, like you said, they do see them as like the stupid versions of them and see them as kind of like, it's almost like looking at a person and getting the ick. They're like, ew, you're an alienage elf? Gross. Like everyone just has beef with one another in this universe. Like, I'm like, this is my comfort game. And this is like, everyone has beef. Everyone has racism against each other. Everyone hates each other. Even if you're the same race, if you're not the right type of one, then you're the wrong one. Like, oh my gosh. Like, oh. Yeah. Gosh, this game is dark.
Yeah, we skipped a bit there, but like Dalish elves are like elves that live like in forests and stuff, like how we're used to elves. And alienage elves are elves that live in like human cities, but they have to live in the ghetto, which is called an alienage, so that we're not using like Earth terms for things.
Yes, we want if you want to live with us and if you want to sit with us on Wednesday, you have to wear pink, but you need to wear pink over there where you're not going to bother us or take our resources. Okay, thanks, bye. Like, that's what an alienage is. It's Mean Girls, but if Regina George wasn't absolutely in charge of the world.
One other thing I wanted to touch on was lyrium, which is like a sort of magic rock that does magic stuff. So that's used to make magic items. It's used to like power up mages so they can keep casting spells because they get exhausted. It restores their mana. And from what I could tell, there's not really an explanation for it. It's just sort of that's the way it is. And
there is an explanation for it in Veilguard if you would like the spoiler.
Okay. You know what? I think I'll leave that one. I'll get to it. But thank you. It's nice to know that there is one.
There is a reason for what lyrium is. And when you find out, you're going to be like, oh, no.
Yeah. Well, there's also two colors of it. There's like blue and red.
Yes. And we like the blue pill. We don't like the red pill.
Right. Exactly. But yeah, it's used for mages to power them up. The Templars also use it to sort of fight mages.
Yes, as the Templars forever and always will be. They are the world's largest oxymoron. We hate you because you're magical, but we're going to take this magical opium to make ourselves more powerful so that we can put you in your place and then become addicted to it and then blame you to become that we are now addicted to it.
Yes, exactly.
God, I hate the Templars.
Yeah. And you already touched on the dwarf aspect where they don't dream and they can sort of touch lyrium without having weird effects.
Yeah, they can handle it, but they can only handle it in certain amounts. The more potent the lyrium is, then the twitchier and the crazier you eventually get. And so it's like, they can actually, like, I think there's one of my favorite NPCs in Origins, actually. He's, like, one who's been a little bit too lyrium touched, and he's like, you hear that? And he's like, anyone else hear that giggling? And you're just like, oh, baby boy, you're a little too far gone, aren't you? And so it's like, yeah, like, handle the lyrium, but please wear your protective gear when you do so. Please wear gloves and mask. Thanks, bye.
Yeah. Well, I got the feeling in Dragon Age 2 that sort of dwarf that helps you out by enchanting items, I forget his name.
Sandal? Oh my god,
Yeah.
I have a whole theory on who Sandal is and why he's... There's something going on with Sandal, but you don't see him again in Inquisition or in Veilguard, and it's a shame because they were cooking with something there. So there's a lot of people in the Dragon Age community that think that Sandal has access to magic.
Yeah, he kind of acts like he's tranquil, but not quite, because he's still like...
Enchantment!
I mean, maybe we're just overreading into, like, a character that they didn't want to, like, do much with, so they just made him be, like, mentally disabled, and there's no explanation.
He became everyone's favorite, and then they were like, oh gosh, we have to find a way to get rid of him. Like, we don't have a storyline for this, guys. And so they, like, wrote him off, but didn't write him off in Dragon Age 3 because Sandal and, gosh, what's his dad's name? Bowden?
I don't remember.
Oh, Sandal. Hold on. I'm going to look it up because it's going to bother me. Sandal and...
Yeah, Bodan.
Bodan, that's right. Bodan Fedek. That's right. As soon as you say it, Bodan. I knew it was close like that.
Yeah, you were close to it. Yeah.
I was close. It was dancing there in the deep dark recesses of my brain. Yeah, and so they like kind of like made him like the seneschal for Hawk, and so they were like, that's where they're gonna be now, and they're not gonna leave, so we're not gonna see them again. And they made everyone sad because everyone loves Sandal and Bodan Fedek. Especially because you end up finding out that, like, he found Sandal in the Deep Roads and, like, adopted him as his son. And it's, like, just so sweet. And he's so kind. And he's like, yeah, I love him. He is a little odd and can only say enchantment, but we love him no matter what, and he's very good at making runes. And then it's like, well, he also makes, like, these extra powerful runes. Like, he's able to freeze an entire ogre. Like, that is, like, mage-level magic. So it's like, how did he do it? And that's what, like, the Dragon Age community is never probably ever going to get an answer on of, can Sandal access magic?
It's just so, like... You know, it's a creator that, like, in the games was created to just, like, fulfill a function, like a game function, not a story function, but just, like, we need to have runes, and we want to have ones that are, like, super powerful for endgame content. So Sandal provides that need, but then it's just because they didn't make it make sense within the universe. It's like,
when you go to different parts of, like, and they come with you, and then you just get, like, these little nuggets, and you're just like, what was that? What just happened? Like, what do you mean he was able to freeze an entire horde of darkspawn with one rune? What do you mean Sandal is going off on his own and is defeating darkspawn with no known ability to fight? Oh my gosh, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it so much.
All right. I want to switch from talking about the setting to talking about the Dragon Age system. So there's a official Dragon Age like RPG system for playing tabletop games. That I wrote a little bit about it. You talked about it somewhat in the start of the actual play, but it's a like roll some dice, add a number versus a target number, like kind of like traditional for that.
Yeah, so you need 3d6 whenever you play the game. So it's not like it's not like Dungeons and Dragons where you need like 7 different types of dice. So you need 3d6, and then you need to designate one as something called a dragon die. It doesn't have to be like a different color. You just have to know, this is my dragon die. Whenever I roll it, this is the one that I need to declare. Like, for instance, I use like 2 red die and 1 like white opalescent marble colored die. So like that's how I'm able to distinguish between this is my dragon die, this is my regular die. And so like usually like I'll hear like Noah say, all right, roll in my dragon die, or like the other characters or the other players are like, okay, like I got this and then I got this on my dragon die. So like it's a lot of trust when it comes into that, because rolling your dragon die equates to the way that it's supposed to be played, but the way I don't like to play it is that you roll stunt points, and then for whatever you do, you can add like a stunt to it specifically in combat, but you roll your dice, including your dragon die, throughout a skill test or anything like that. I always try to set it based upon like what the role play was versus what the character is trying to do, and then I make it based upon that. And because of how chaotic all of my players are, except for Natalie and Jen, I always have to make the DC higher because they're unhinged. And I'm like, oh, you just insulted this guy and you're trying to convince him to change the will or whatever it is of your dead parents. You're going to have to roll a 25, fam. And they're like, I can't do that. And I'm like, then maybe don't insult people. And then immediately try to persuade them. And so it's like, it's very fun. And the way that it works is that if you have, like, for instance, like in Dungeons and Dragons, you have like proficiencies and you can add into it. And so the more you level up, you gain things. And my players are actually about to level up to level 2. And I think our next game on Monday, we're going to do our level up game. You get to pick such things called talents. And these are things that like you have learned and that you're inherently good at. And then you can like progress your talents as you move through the game. And then there are things called focuses, which are like the little things like I'm good at perception. I'm good at talking to animals. I'm good at drinking in some cases if you want to play that kind of a character. And so then you can add those to your dice rolls. So it's like you roll 3d6 and then I'll say like, and then add your communication score plus any focuses that you can convince me that will work in this scenario. So for instance, Kristen always wants to use religious lore. Constantly. She's like, can I use religious lore? And I'm just like, honey, no, that's not what I need you to roll right now. I know you're trying. This isn't a religious lore check, unfortunately. And so she's always trying to find ways to like do it. And when I do allow her to roll religious lore, she's like, yes. So it's been like our little bit right now. And so the way that the game works is that if you hit the target number, obviously like it's up to the GM's discretion and you choose how much you get. But I like playing at it as if they go above and beyond, like depending upon how high I set the target as for the roll, I will give them more information. And then, like, there was one time, I think, Jen, she rolled really well. And I gave her so much information. And I'm sitting here and I'm just like, I think she forgot the information. I don't think she remembers because she hasn't had a chance to talk with the character she needs to talk about this with to try to get some information out of them. And I'm hoping she has forgotten because this will make this a lot more interesting if she has. But essentially, the game goes on like that. And then we just did our first combat. in the last I think 2 games we were doing combat, and the way combat works is that, again, like, you have your initiative, you set, like, you have a major action, which is like the type of attack you want to do, your minor
Right.
action, which is like your bonus action, and then I always let them have like a free action of like if they want to talk or if they want to do something. But then this is where stunt points come into play. The way stunt points are supposed to work is that they're used for every time you roll. And so you like save them up essentially in combat. Like, for instance, if they roll like 4 on the dragon die and then they want to do a stunt move, then they can pick like something that has a value of 4 stunt points or lower. And they can do that to add some extra flair to whatever it is that they are doing in the combat. But the way I like to also do it is that I like to, when they roll a 6, I have them mark it. So that if they ever want to, because if you've ever had a moment in a game where you are just like, I'm about to do this really cool thing, you roll your dice and they're all 1s, and you're just like, no! I allow them to use those if they save them. I told them they're in charge. I'm not keeping track for you. That they can re-roll their dice or add an extra dice to a roll just to give them a little bit more of an edge, because I'm a kind and benevolent DM.
All right. Yeah. I mean, that seems like a reasonable use. So that's okay.
Plus, I always like to go in like the rule of cool. Like, if it's really, really cool, like, and I know like they want to do it, and there's like no version of like inspiration in this, because just like the video games, the RPG is actually very hard. Like, you know how in Dungeons and Dragons, you might end up getting like a sword through the leg and your leg is shattered and you wake up and then, oops, I'm healed and everything's fine. That's not how it works in Dragon Age, hun. In Dragon Age, if you get injured, depending upon the severity, you have to roll dice to see how much you heal. And you don't heal all of your hit points up at the end of every long rest. You gotta roll for that.
Yep.
And then if you die, you better hope there's some kind of a healer on hand. And unfortunately, none of the players are a healer. And so I'm like, before we go, we're going to do a shopping trip. Because I don't want to accidentally kill you as we travel throughout the world. Game is rough, but it's fun. It's fun.
What made you choose, like, besides that being the official system, but, like, I feel like there's tons of systems for fantasy games and settings similar to Dragon Age. What made you want to go for, like, the official one?
So I was playing with a group of friends, and we were playing in the Dragon Age system before. And I really liked the way that the DM was playing for us, and I really liked it. And this was the first system, because I've played other systems. I've played Dungeons and Dragons. I've played Mutants and Masterminds. I've played 7th. And this one, I actually have, like, the core rule book with me. I'm looking at it right now as I sit at my desk and I talk with you. I know the ins and the outs of this book. Like, I know how to build the characters. I can physically... I think for me, it's like, yeah, in D&D, it's, like, really easy. And I've, like, it's easy to, like, create, like, a fantasy world because there's so many fantasy elements. There's, like, 100 races of people that you can be. But, like, for me, it's the fact that I know the world. I understand how the world works. I can come up with something that will fit into the universe that doesn't affect the lore of the game, that is already canonical, but still create something of my own and allow my friends to enjoy being in this universe and hopefully, like, inspire other people to not just want to play, like, your average Dungeons and Dragons game and explore, like, all of the other indie publishers who've, like, come out with this. Like, yeah, Dragon Age is, like, a well-known video game, but it's actually, like, produced by, like, the Age System and by Green Ronin, and essentially, like, they have created something that matches the game. It feels like you are in the video game almost. So much so that Kristen bought Veilguard and has been playing it because she loved our game so much. And that's what I wanted to do. I didn't want to like inspire other people to play Dragon Age. I wanted to inspire a different type of fantasy world than the typical elves and goblins and all of the other things that people are used to when they hear and think of like fantasy and high fantasy. And specifically for me, I love high fantasy, and I've been doing a lot of like modern fantasy stuff. And like, yeah, that's fun, but my brain instinctively goes towards the high fantasy. Like if I want to be in a fantastical world where there's magic and elves and dragons and swords and like all of this other stuff, I don't want it to reflect the real world. I want it to be so completely different where people forget their troubles, where people forget like all of like the stress and anxiety of living life, that they get to escape to a completely different world and just enjoy being a different character for a few hours.
Yeah, no, that's a good answer. Thank you. One thing that I found interesting about the campaign is that, like, we talked about all these, like these sort of deep lore parts of the Dragon Age world, and your campaign, while it's definitely a Dragon Age campaign, felt like it was sort of a smaller piece of that and wasn't interacting with, like, the larger lore parts of, like, the Fade or the Blights or anything like that, at least for the first few sessions. Did you start off with like an idea, or did you more like adapt it to what the players designed as their characters? What was like the process for that?
So I created what I wanted. I kind of had an idea of what I wanted it to be. I wanted it to be where it was a group of friends after the events of Inquisition, because it's like that 10-year gap between Trespasser and Veilguard, because most people don't know that it's like a 1 to 2 year gap between Trespasser and Inquisition. And then after Trespasser, it is another 10 years afterwards before the events of Veilguard start. And so it's been 12 years in between. And so I wanted to do something of like what happened in between those 12 years. And that is something where I was like, okay, I can work with this. I can play with this. And so essentially, like, I was thinking, okay, these are all people, like, the Inquisition brought every type of person together. Everyone understood that the breach was bad, that what Corypheus was going to do was going to break the world, so we need to make sure that doesn't happen. And so I wanted to essentially have it where this is after the events of the Inquisition. In this canonized version of the game, the Inquisition has been dismantled after Trespasser, and then essentially it's like the Inquisitor is working underground and is still trying to look for Solus and is trying to figure out what Solus is doing, what is he going to do. We know he's up to something that is not good, but we don't know what it is yet, and so he's looking for something. And so hopefully they end up figuring this. The next session we're going to do, they're going to read this letter. They're essentially going to be trying to find whatever it is Solus is going to use to help tear open and bring down the veil. Essentially, he's bringing down the veil so the Fade can be let loose into the universe, as you learn in Veilguard. And the veil is like that curtain that I said that disconnects the world of reality to the Fade. And essentially, I wanted it to be where they all were together and that they were trying to figure out what we can do. And then it ended up turning into Kristen was like, I'm going to pay you money if you decide to have a start on the twins, because her and Noah play twins, on their parents' funeral. And so I was like, all right, bet. And so I did that. And then a lot of chaotic antics
All right.
And then as it developed, I added more because I was like, ooh, what if? And then as soon as like I got that, I immediately started writing and figuring out like, okay, this is how I'm going to get them to do what I need them to do, because they don't have money anymore. because their parents locked them out. And it was all because Joe came up in the first scene and was like, here, I found this baby for you, and hands over the baby. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's going to be their younger brother. This is perfect. It's all coming together. And it just absolute chaos ensues. And now they're going to get this letter from the Inquisitor saying, hey, we need you to go do this. I know that you're going to have money problems because I heard about what happened in the will. Because the Inquisitor, like, has ears and eyes everywhere. And so they basically are like, we need you to figure out what it is. And then essentially what happens is that you can pick up and keep any treasure that you want, so you don't have to worry about money. And then the debt that you owe, that Enigme owes to the crows, will be paid in full, and you do not have to worry about it anymore. And so I was like, this is perfect. And so, like, I'm not gonna say what it is exactly, but every character, I think I want to work more with Kristen on developing one, because she was like, I don't really think I would want to have a secret. But all of my characters have a really either funny secret or like a secret of like, I want you to do this, and this is what's going to happen. Are you okay with causing chaos? And they're like, yes. And so we just learned, like, Noah's character secret is that he was a part of the Antivan Crows, that he paid them a contract to help free his sister. And then because of the Inquisition and the events of Inquisition, the contract was unable to be fulfilled. And so because his sister is walking around free without the help of the crows, they were like, hey, we still want our money. And so it was like, either you do this for us, whatever it is in this letter from the Inquisitor, or we're going to hunt you down because you left the crows, and no one leaves the crows willingly. And so, in case anyone doesn't know, the crows is like this organization of like thieves and assassins, and they are like this elite like force. And it's like different. They transition very differently. They do a hard pivot in Veilguard than they do in Origins, where like in Origins they're like deep, dark, mysterious. If you leave, we're gonna kill you, kind of a situation. And then in like Veilguard, they're like, we're a found family and we care about each other. And I'm just like, this is different than what I experienced. But okay, go off, Queen.
Yeah, well, it's also been like a couple like decades since then. You know, organizations evolve over time.
Yes. And so I was just, it was jarring for me. And so I was like, I still want it to be where the crows are still like these, like, yeah, you're not going to get away with leaving us without a price. And so that's why I was like, all right. And so now essentially their goal is to figure out what it is that Solus is planning, figure out what he is looking for, and then they actually have like a list of places that they are going to be able to travel to, and they get to pick where they want to go. And depending upon where they go, either more chaos and hijinks are going to ensue, or because I assigned like levels to each of them, and I was just like, it's either going to get really rough or it's going to be really, really fun. Because even though I'm a kind of benevolent DM, I also want to give them a challenge.
Yeah. I think, rolling with it to try and make it be something that's still like what you'd planned, but adapting what they'd wanted. Yeah, I had no idea from watching it that you'd done that. I really had no idea whether you'd gone with letting them decide what had happened or you, and it's really cool. Like I think it works really well.
I think it's like a mix of whatever they're role playing out, and I'm taking notes on, and what I pick up on as someone who is very, I don't want to call myself passive, but just watching it all play out, I was like, ooh, I'm gonna play with this. And so I would write little notes to myself, and then the next time that we would play, I would incorporate those notes that I took into like the next game. And so it's very much like, I don't know if they realize it yet, but they are the ones who are like evolving the story as we go. And then the more I have like side chats with people, and we involve ourselves. Like, for instance, like Joe was like, I only want to do a grand heist. That is what Knife Daddy wants. Knife Daddy just wants to steal the coolest things that he physically can wherever he goes. That is my secret. I don't want anything else. And so, like, that's why, like, when we were at the twins' house, he was stealing a pillow. And he stole a baby before the campaign even began. And he's been, like, messaging me, like, hey, like, can I try to steal this? And I'm like, no. I'm like, they're talking directly to you. What do you mean you want to try to pickpocket this person? And so it's been, like, really funny. And then you have, like, Natalie and Jen who are just like, I just want to create the greatest weapon. I want to find my family's mystical rolling pin. And then you have, like, the twins who are just like, I want to cause chaos. And I'm like, and I'm just like, okay. So it's definitely a well-rounded table, I will say.
I definitely agree. There's so many different things for what the different players are doing and trying to get
so
done.
Many
it's very
moving parts.
Yeah.
So many.
What other kind of stories would you want to tell within like a role-playing tabletop for the Dragon Age games and setting? I
think what I would really love to see, or maybe eventually try my hand in, I would love, if I ever felt the confidence, to run a full-fledged campaign. Like, this is going to be like an extended, like, little mini campaign, essentially. And I told them, like, if we want to continue this and, like, do, like, arcs of it, that's fine. But eventually, I would love to do a game of the First Blight and what that was like for people. Because, yeah, like, things are written down, but, like, just create and, like, having, like, the players be, like, some of the first Grey Wardens, and then knowing that one of them, or, like, an NPC that they love, die because they have to be the one to kill the archdemon, I think would be very good narrative and emotional storytelling. That's what I would want.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool, and it would almost be fun to, like, have multiple different sets of characters that, like, you kill off their first set with the blight.
Yes. And, like, to me, I don't think, because of how many goops we've been having and, like, stuff like this, like, unless, like, it actually, like, happens. I love emotional storytelling. I love creating characters and putting them through the ringer. A lot of the books that I read, it's like, I'm going to bring this character so low that they are almost broken, and then something causes them in this book to, like, go up and be like, no, I'm not going to allow this to happen to someone else, so I'm going to be the person to stop it. And then just watching that journey, I really like that. And I think, like, a big reason as to why I like that is because of Avatar and watching Zuko's character arc in it.
Mm-hmm.
Because Zuko is, again, like, I will yap about him no matter what the situation is. I think he has the best redemption story. I think he has the best character growth of any character in media, because he was the bad guy. And then over the course of time, he realizes, like, after being brought down essentially to rock bottom, he's like, I have to change. I don't like who I'm becoming and what I am right now. And then he pivots and then becomes, like, everyone's favorite, like, character in the gang, and, like, he tries and he's willing to try, and that's what I love. And essentially it's, I want to invoke that kind of feeling in, like, for instance, like, I don't know if we'd ever be able to do that and have that kind of storytelling with how chaotic we all are together, because we all just love each other so much and we can never take anything seriously in our lovely little band of friends. But when I want to, like, show, like, emotional impact in other ways, like, for instance, this is gonna hopefully come out after they finally get to the place that we're going to go. But I don't think it will be a spoiler for you if I tell you that they're going to be going to this dungeon, and essentially they're going to see that it is a Tevinter outpost, and that something happened there because there's skeletons everywhere of like Tevinter soldiers and Tevinter mages, and there's like clear signs of like a battle that happened there like years and years and years ago. But then you see that all of the soldiers are like, their bodies are towards the way, like the entrance. And then the deeper they go in, you see skeletons of the slaves that they left behind still chained to the walls. And it's just like, I want that to like hit them of like, oh, we are stepping into somewhere and we need to take this seriously. Like, yeah, we like the first half of this so far has been like, key, I'ma go steal this and I'ma go and like do whatever and la 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 la. But now we're gonna start getting into like the whole like, why I love this game is because of the emotional storytelling and the impact and the realizing that essentially that it is not always sunshine and rainbows, and it's not always going to be a good thing. This is like, I'm so excited for them to reach into this dungeon because there is, and I'm not going to tell you this because I don't want to give away too much, but as I was designing this dungeon, the story like just came out of like the significance of it and why this outpost was never really dug into before. And it's just like, oh God. I kind of want to, by the end of this campaign, I kind of want them to maybe almost think to themselves like, maybe Solus should tear down the veil. Like, if I'm able to invoke that in one of them, I think I would be happy. I think I would have successfully played this campaign if one of them like is like, no, I kind of understand why Solus wants to do this now.
Yeah, trying to have like evoke those emotional kind of reactions is definitely what you want.
Mm-hmm. Like I'm always this is gonna sound absolutely crazy, but I really love getting into the mindset of the villains and trying to understand, even though Solus is not technically a traditional villain per se, I will say he's more of an antagonist than anything else. But I love getting into the mind of them and trying to understand why they do the reasons that they do it. And like a lot of people say, the road to badness was always paved with good intentions. And so one of my favorite, probably no, like my absolute favorite all-time villain in the world is Frollo from The Hunchback of Notre Dame, because all of the other Disney characters and villains kind of had a reason, and they wanted power, they felt like they were outcasted, XYZ, and Frollo was just a villain because he could, and that's what makes him terrifying. And that is the kind of storytelling I love, of like, that's a whole different time and a whole different day of what I could get into, but getting into the heads of villains and like seeing villains portrayed in media and antagonists portrayed in media, I eat that up. Like, I just get like, ugh. Like, they're never going to be, like, my favorite, like, I love them! Like, I have a friend who loves Ramsay Bolton so much that she's like, I want to marry him! And I'm like, what is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? I'm just like, they're a horrible person! And I'm like, and she's like, well,
physically or like the character? Because like,
she wants to, like, she loves Ramsay Bolton. She loves Cersei Lannister. And I'm just like, what is wrong with you? Do I need to call someone? She's like, you just don't understand. And I'm like, no, I do. I just don't understand why you're in love with them. Like, yes, you can love them as a villain or as an antagonist, but don't love them as a person.
Right, yeah, definitely. Ugh. All right. we come to the end of the questions I had. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about for Dragon Age or the campaign, or?
I think I'll just end it on, I guess, branch out from typical RPGs. You'll never know what tabletop or even RPG game is gonna scratch that little itch, and like, you don't know unless you try different things. If you stick to the one that you know because you know it's good, you're never gonna get to experience other tabletops and meet new friends and learn more about like the way the world works, and like it definitely stretches your imagination by far. So it's like what I tell people, like, if you want to support your favorite author, read other authors. If you want to support your favorite filmmaker, watch other movies other than them. Like, watch other people and play and experience different things so that you don't just stick with what you know and don't experience and grow from other things.
Yeah. No, that's definitely true. Like, learning always makes you better at what you want to learn about, even in ways that you can't really sense.
Just pulling out my little teacher persona there for a hot minute.
All right. Cool. Thanks, Zoe.
No problem.
Where can people listen to the show?
They can follow us at Degenerates with Dice podcast. We primarily stream on like Twitch and YouTube. We try to stream every Monday night. If you're on the Eastern Seaboard, we start at 8 p.m. every night, but as Noah likes to say, we start at 7 p.m. Central Time, the only time zone that truly matters. And then we usually stream for like an hour to an hour and a half, and we like to have fun times. If we don't have everyone there, we like to, as you said earlier, we like to do a little where we sit and we yap at each other, or one of us does a presentation on something, or we just get chaotic and do AITAs with everybody. And so that's been fun. Whenever we can't really think of a topic, we like to default to that, or if we don't have enough, or if we finish our conversations early, we do that. But also look forward to, after this, I think we're going to do like a little break after we eventually finish our Dragon Age run. We're going to be playing Avatar Legends. We're going to be playing Avatar, and
Cool.
Joe is going to be the one running it. And he's got a good concept. He's been like spitballing ideas off of a couple of us, and he's got something good brewing.
Yeah, I feel like there's so much you can do. Like, it's a really broad world with the different avatars and periods that have already been covered. And I mean, even if you don't like those, you can go further back in time or forward in time and do what you want.
I think we're going to be doing a time pre-Aang and pre-Korra. So we're going to be doing something definitely past-based.
Yeah. Are you doing one of the named ones or even further back?
I think we want to do something further back. I think we want to do something where we don't mess up canonical lore, and we, like, that's the thing. We're the type of people where we don't want to mess with the lore. If the lore is already established, we don't want to mess with it. And so I think, like, that's what Joe was, like, thinking. He was like, I don't want to say something wrong. And so I think I want us to go back further than Kyoshi and Kurik and all of those lovely avatars that we know and love from watching Aang and Korra.
I feel like I enjoy interacting more with like established lore because that's like what we already like about the setting.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, you're probably going to contradict canon, but you know, you're still sort of interacting with it in sort of like a what if story.
Mm-hmm. I think we're going to try to do it in a way where it's like we want it to make sense to the universe, but we're definitely going to make it ours. Like, Joe is like, I'm not that. He goes, I don't know all the lore of Avatar like some of us do. Like, me and Natalie are big Avatar heads. And so he's like, I'm probably going to have to rely on you on a lot of the lore. And I'm like, well, if you're starting that far back, the only lore I can really give you is who were the original benders and what the order of the cycle is. Like, if we're gonna go that far back, fam. But he's excited. This will be my first time experiencing Joe as a DM, and from what I've heard, Joe is a very good DM. And I just know, like, for instance, like, I know I'm going to have fun with it. And I've already said I want to be a waterbender, and someone can take that from my cold, dead hands if someone else wants to be the waterbender of the group.
You can have more than one. It's okay.
We can have more than one, but I think, like, in a perfect world, I would love for each of us to be a bender. But I said I'm laying claim to being the waterbender. And if we need to have an extra waterbender, so be it. But I am a waterbender, and I will not change my mind.
Well, you can be an ice bender, and they can be a wood bender, whatever. It's all good.
Oh my gosh. You know what? I'm pivoting. I'm going to be a swamp bender. I'm going to bend the plant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, cool. Thanks, Zoe. This is really cool.
It's been a pleasure.
That was Zoe from Degenerates with Dice telling us about her actual play campaign, Dragon Age Resurrection. The campaign is still in its early stages on their YouTube channel, Degenerates with Dice, and on Twitch. So if you like that, go check it out. And if you like Dragon Age stuff, it's really good for that too. They're in Orzammar at the moment, one of the dwarven capitals, so lots of fun there. Like Zoe said, they also do other things when they don't have the whole group there, so they'll look into like RPG horror stories or talk about like the latest controversy that Wizards of the Coast has gotten into, since they seem to do that a lot. Fun show, really relaxed atmosphere, and it's every Monday night for the United States, whatever that translates in for you, and you can check it out on YouTube and just see when they go live. And as always, thank you for listening, and thank you to our Patreon supporter, Darren, for keeping the show going. Love you guys. Thank you.